Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on what part of the world you are joining us from. My name is Kanan Arinda with Solutions Now Africa. Now, for over a year, we have been going out into the communities to look out for positive impact stories. People, individuals, and organizations that are doing something to improve the livelihoods of those around their communities, whilst also keeping in mind positive narrative change for the African continent. And a few months back, one of our own reporters, Dan Ayebade, went to the eastern region of Uganda, that is MAYUGE. His interest? An organization that is doing something about the education system that seems to be difficult for some particular schools in that area. The hashtag will be Hope for MAYUGE. That's 4 in digit form, and you can be part of our conversation from there. But without further ado, this is the documentary.
Meet Agnes Atala, Dina Achola, and Denise Mirembe. Atala is a graduate of ethics and business. Achola is a business computing professional. And Mirembe left university with a bachelor's degree in literature. They are all classroom teachers. Atala and Achola are at Chigandalo Church of Uganda Primary School, while Mirembe is in Muwaya Sub-County at St. Kizito Kanyabwina Primary School. These ladies would be enjoying the pomp and color of the city, building careers in air-conditioned offices. Atala arrived at Chigandalo at the height of the COVID-19 lockdowns. She was instrumental in carrying out homeschooling to keep children in the loop. Her papa's father manifested after the lockdowns. Children were not returning to school. She took the initiative to engage parents individually to ensure that the children return.
Girls not bright.
Education first.
All these learners have learned to love us because of everything we do. They are very free with us. I think you saw how they were very free with me. We have a very strong relationship with them. They don't fear us.
Atala's primary 2 class is fun and engaging. The children love it. But it does not stop here. Her routine involves stepping out of class to meet parents whose children need collaborative attention. Little Hadija, back at school, has been moody lately. Her mathematics performance has deteriorated.
Nadala ize muwaleka nadala mukubala. Biri ageza ku aye byona ayisemu kayo kubala ayitiriza. Tawana asobola obwennyini.
I also purpose to know what Hadija's mother feels about Atala.
Nolanga inamufi omutima ogwagala okuso abaana. Omwana bamuteekako omukwano. Bukyanga bakyuka okusomera. Abaana baagala okugenda kusomera.
At St. Kizito Kanyabwina Primary School, Mirembe is channeling efforts to keep girls at school in the community. Sylvia Ababiogela and Alice Biobona are teenage sisters. They had kissed school goodbye.
Because I had never seen them at school, and I keep seeing them going to Daboa when others are at school, I asked them why they were not coming to school, and they told me they didn't have school fees. I asked the headmistress if they could come and study before we get school fees. She said it was okay. They said they didn't have books. And then I looked at, if these children really want to come to school, these things can be provided. There are so many people out there who want to do good, but they don't know which people to give these good things.
Though they are now back, she doesn't tire to encourage them to keep in school.
Omwaka ogujja nze sijja kubeera mu community eno, nja kuba nga ngenze mvudde mu fellowship. Njagala bawona nga mukaali kuyita ku ssomero bwenkuba simu bankobere nti abaana bakaali ku ssomero. Ate nti bakoze eki ne bwe bumala P7 babisse.
Like Atala, Mirembe is also much involved with children and their families to make sure they keep in school and perform better.
Wish my P1 children were still here. I would have showed you a boy, he's called Safa. When I first met him, he was very violent. He would fight with me when I would tell him to write, to share a pencil. So I had to go see his mother. And even by going to a child's home, it softens them. It shows them that you care about them. Some of these children are not behaving the way they are supposed to be behaving, not because they are bad, but they think no one is seeing them. So when you see them, when you show them that you notice them, you know them, you value them as human beings, they have an important role to play. There's a way it motivates them.
Mirembe regularly invites a non-profit that teaches young girls and teenage mothers how to make reusable sanitary pads. About 70% of children in impoverished communities are giving up school before completing their primary school education, according to independent child development trackers. Your guess is as good as mine. Menstrual hygiene is a factor in this. Atala, Mirembe and Achola, and about more 30 other graduates with different professional backgrounds are scattered in all over different communities in MAYUGE to help turn things around. First things first. How did they get here? They are part of a model being pioneered here by Teach for Uganda, a non-profit that is operating in 4 districts in rural Uganda. This organization is seeking to build a network of professionals who offer leadership and mobilize communities for collective good. Around 2018, this district made headlines when it was listed among the worst performing districts in the country and Busoga region in the National Primary Living Examinations, a thing that left policymakers and civil society players dumbstruck. Teach for Uganda believes that collective efforts are needed to pull children in this area out of the rock bottom.
Teach for Uganda is a non-government organization, and we run a program, a fellowship program. And this program is a teaching as leadership program. So there is teaching as leadership. So we are doing teaching and leadership. Also in this program, we recruit graduates, those finalists from different universities, and we are able to train them on pedagogy and leadership. After training, we are able to place them in the schools or in the community, rural communities, and to, drastically transform the learning outcomes of children, especially in foundational classes, P1, P2, and P3.
Education inequality and inequity is not a reserve for MAYUGE. It is a broader Uganda education service delivery problem and a responsibility of leaders and policymakers. While the introduction of the Universal Primary Education Program increased enrollment from 3.1 million in 1996 to 8.4 million by 2015, government and independent reports indicate that the quality of education has drastically dropped. About 70% of children in rural and low-income community schools are not able to read and interpret a P2 story, according to Uwezo, a child education performance tracker. However, for MAYUGE, the education challenge here is cross-cutting. Truckloads and plantations of sugarcane are more visible than gardens of food. The parents are financially struggling, the children are hungry and dejected, while sugar moguls are exploiting the situation from another angle. I spoke to local leaders in Chigandalo to understand the challenge holistically in the perspective of their community and if there is progress.
Mwalo yagezeza kwino okuyamba community okubiriza n'okutama amaani n'essuubi okusomesa omwana n'obugayiga bw'amaka. Okulaba ku kino covid yatutawo omuzi mu myaka ebiri abaana kayiba ajja nga bawesa interest bajja mu bikaado bajja kutunda paani bajja okusubulasubula omuntu kyaleetamu obunafu bwabiri abaana okunafuwa.
Aye bukyanga tiki for Uganda enjira batandika okwegeresa abazaire bayegeresa n'abaana ebintu ebyo biri kujja nga bwe bikendeera tibwaga nga bwe byali.
Among the many challenges, there is also an infrastructure gap in the district. On average, one desk is occupied by 6 learners, while over 90 crowd on one pit latrine every day. The average number of children per class is 127. In Atala's class at Chigandalo Primary School, there are about 150. The district needs extra 23,700 desks, 137,515 textbooks, and over 550 million shillings worth of salaries for the 674 required teachers in order to meet national standards and reduce inequality in learning.
If they could add me 4.4 billion to make it 17.4, then I'll have all those teachers for primary and it will be perfectly well at a ratio of 155. Then with the inspectors, they are given the 54 million. That is what has been given as an IPF for this financial year, 2020-2023, which I was calculating and getting the unity cost. Then when I was also calculating money for these other support, sports development and management, because co-curriculars play a very vital role in children's development and acquisition of what is taught. I looked at the unity cost given per child is 218 shillings, because all those learners, we give them 30 million for a whole year. When you divide by the 137,515 learners, it's like every child is at a unit cost of 218 shillings. When us were calculating this financial year, the funding gap, because my inspectors are given 54 million shillings for a whole year to go to 1,112 schools. But then if you go at a unity cost of a school, you'll find that it's maybe 2,000 something, 3,000.
To achieve the recommended standard of 1 teacher per 55 children, for example, the district needs more 674 teachers to move from the current 1,826 to 2,500. Teach for Uganda is counting on the brilliance of recent university graduates to overturn some of these challenges. The fellows have thus been deployed in the poorly performing schools, whereupon the response mechanism involves games and recreation, parental visits, working alongside teachers to fill in the human resource gap, and introduction of technology and solar systems. For now, they are focusing on the lower primary stage from primary 1 to primary 3 to improve literacy and numeracy and wholesomely change these villages' attitudes to education.
One of our challenges in our education system, especially in rural communities, is that there is a distance or a gap between the community and the schools. And so as Teach for Uganda, we work with our fellows to make sure that they bridge that gap, they close that distance between the school and the community. So there's a very strong community mobilization and organizing approach that we use, that each and every fellow, after you have finished teaching your class, you are supposed to visit the parents of the children.
At Shigandaro, enrollment increased from 1,125 when Atala first arrived to 1,400.
The previous year, primary 1, I had 235. This year, I have 262. Then primary 2, previous year I had 145. This year we have 176. We were understaffed, yes. We were having few teachers. So when Teach for Uganda chose our school, it was really a blessing for us.
Achola is introducing a digital platform to track attendance in schools, and in Kanyabwina, girls are staying in school thanks partly to their reusable sanitary pads making skills. In another school is law graduate Nancy Ongom. Dennis Kinyera works as the coach to these fellows. He plays a big role to ensure that they are comfortable in their host communities.
For us, the challenge we have as government schools, we follow the government policy, which says that we have to teach our younger children in their local language. So previously, they could hardly understand English. Now, since these people joined us, our children can speak some simple English and even understand the instruction is given.
At first we had negative attitude and we thought they would not work. But it's like they've shown us that they can mobilize the community. They can put up enterprises in schools because they've trained the learners. Their way of relationship has changed the attitude of the teachers in the schools where they are. Because now teachers say, if I'm a grade 3 certificate holder, but a graduate can move out and go to the community and sit in these village meetings telling them to bring children to school. So addressing the issue of dropping out, addressing issues of irregularity, addressing issues of feeding. Then in the schools where they are, there has been a change. So they're addressing some of the issues. And if ministry could still copy from what these people are doing, and we put it in all schools, I think it's a different way of learning and it can improve on the challenges.
Our fellows have been able to impact currently we are impacting nearly 10,000 learners.
Now,
Can't hear you.
Africa. You can leave a like, you can leave a comment, you can turn those notifications on if you are interested in positive impact and narrative change stories. But this story in particular, Hope for MAYUGE, is one that has raised a lot of conversations, and that is why we are here today. We have an amazing panel discussion that will be coming on a bit later. But before that, I have the opportunity and privilege of welcoming our CEO and a personal friend, Mpindi Abbas. Abbas, guten Nachmittag.
No, it's you can't say that. It's evening. Okay, guten Tag. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Kanan?
Well, Abbas, we
I think
are delighted
there's
to
an
have
echo
you
in
here
between.
today, and we'd love to hear some of your thoughts, some of what you might have to share with us.
So, can you confirm that you can hear me, first and foremost?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so there's a huge gap in between us, so I will just go ahead and share my remarks. First and foremost, congratulations to the Solutions Now Africa team. It's been a long journey here at MCI, or especially speaking about our dedication towards promoting solutions journalism or constructive journalism, which is rooted in our belief and idea that journalism can make the world a better place. The investment made thereafter is really to, one, make sure journalists understand the relevance of portraying the world in its entirety rather than continuously feeding the world with negative stories. So we objectively agree that the coverage of problem-centered news must continue, but we must equally show and with the same energy, with the same aggressiveness, what is being done to deal with those challenges and those problems. And I think the MAYUGE story is one of those perfect examples of how human beings are responding to the problems in their communities. So one person might say this story is a public relations story, which can be, debated. What we do say is that you can be critical, but also very constructive by showing people how the world is responding. So in this case, we are looking at education as a challenge in Mayuge. But in the same district where you have a big education gap and big education challenges, you also have, this model that is being enrolled to deal with those challenges that people face. And the idea of us adding a new conversation to the news is that we show you what is being done. And we are also adding another layer of news is not just given to people on TV and online, but we also facilitate constructive dialogues. And that's why we are taking it to a whole new level of let's move away from just doing the stories and the documentaries and the multimedia stories online. Let's also bring experts to talk about this solution. We are not going to talk about the problem. We're going to talk about the solution, how it's being done. Could it be replicated? What are other people doing in other communities about the same things? And that needs space, that needs people to come together to conversate. And that's the purpose of today's screening. So we might have few people, but we are setting a new example to the media industry in Uganda on how this
Pindi Abbas, he is not in the country right now, but we are delighted that he could be here with us, at least virtually speaking. But ladies and gentlemen, we are just getting started. The gist is getting on. We have an amazing panel that is here to talk about this very matter. And to help us with that is a very seasoned media personality. She has been in mainstream journalism for a while, and she is going to be leading the conversation conversation. That is none other than Sandra. Sandra, thank you so much for joining us. The ball is in your court now.
Me? I do not want to speak to an audience that will probably not even hear a word of what I will say. So if you can please help me confirm that you can hear me, and then you don't pay to talk, so I can speak for as long as I can. Just confirm that you can hear me. Now, it's such an honor that today we get to speak about a topic that I believe concerns all of us. You may have gotten a chance. All right. I was earlier mentioning that in one way or the other, you realize that the topic today, the theme today, education inequality, does affect all of us in one way or the other. You know, for example, you may have a chance, you may have had a chance to go to school, but maybe your relative, your cousin, your sister, your brother did not get a chance to go to school for different reasons. Maybe they got pregnant and they were told to sit back, or the parents at home decided to choose the boys over the girls, or they chose to simply send you into marriage. So this is a conversation that is, first of all, very timely. We've had different conversations in the past in regards to education in Uganda. We know we've had pandemics as well that have caused a drift in the way that different initiatives were pushing this to really get better. But as we dive into this conversation, I want us to quickly remember this quote from Nelson Mandela that says that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Now imagine a bird without its wings. So you are a bird without its wings if you don't have education. Where are you actually going to go? How would you interact with people? Where do you start? So this is why we're having this conversation, and it's such an honor that we got the chance to watch this solution, our journalism story that is giving hope for people in MAYUGE, and we'll be diving into that conversation. But just to set the pace for the theme and to get you in the know of what we're talking about today, we'll be basing our conversation on education inequality. And we want to understand the challenges and, of course, how we can create possibilities for the rural learners in Uganda. So if you are to look at SDG 4, it talks about quality education for all. And we are looking at this SDG as being one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. But how far are we really? How are we performing at the moment? So just to, once again, to set the pace, education inequality is the unequal distribution of academic resources, including but not limited to school funding, qualified and experienced teachers, books, and so much more. You know, we've had reports where schools do not have enough personnel in the institution, so that means some don't get a chance to study everything they have to study, and so much more. You know, even the question of as simple as pads, you saw in that story, as simple as that, it's limiting people from actually being able to carry on and go to school. So I do have an amazing panel, so you will allow me introduce them as quickly as possible, and I want to start with the ladies first. It's very important for us to remember that when we are having such conversations. So do allow me on the panel introduce Miss Betty Tushabwe, who is a renowned passionate educationist and also director at Mbuya Parent School in Kampala. Thank you so much for joining us today on this panel. We're happy to have you. We also have Mr. Isaac Wamala. He is an alumni with Teach for Uganda, the institution that we are mostly covering in that story that you watched much earlier. I was earlier asking him, how do I introduce him? Because he seems to have different titles to his name. We also have Mr. James Kasaga Alinitwe, who's the founder and also the Chief Executive Officer at Teach for Uganda. Now, this is the non-for-profit organization that is responsible for the work you've seen in that previous story, in that story that you just watched. So we'll be, trying to understand the logic, the story behind that. And I want us to quickly attack the elephant in the room. Do allow me again invite Miss Betty. And what we'd like you to do for us is to set the pace of this conversation, to get the ground running. When we talk about education inequality, what does it mean and what are the implications of it?
To me, the education inequality in Uganda, I don't even the scope narrowing soon. According to what I see today, I see it getting worse and worse every other day. I'm an educationist, but who is born in the rural areas, and I visited these areas. But even then, even before you think of the rural areas, I would like also to pull you to the schools in the Kampala, more so the government schools. I think they are in the same bracket. So as we consider schools in the rural areas, we should also think of schools in the city or in the cities, but having the same challenges, because the challenges are the same and they are yet to be solved. When you look at the supervision of these schools in rural areas or government schools, you find that a lot is desired. A lot should be done. The teachers do what they feel they can. They are not supervised. They are not like forced to do what they are required to do. And nature of human beings, they are lazy. If there is no force behind them to make them do what they are required to do, don't expect them to do it. At the same time, the facilities, the funding, as much as we have inspectors of schools, we have education officers, they don't have the facilities, they don't have the equipment to help them supervise these schools. For instance, you are going to find a district has no car for the education department. How are they moving to these areas? So teachers are doing what they feel they can, and they do things at their own leisure. So it's really a very, very big challenge for these schools. And if you look at the government, I mean the community itself, before you look at the government, the community itself is not bothered. They are doing nothing to see that this education improves. In fact, the government policies that came up have worsened the situation. For instance, parents are no longer paying school fees in these government schools in the rural areas. So they are not bothered because there is no investment put across. They see children going to school and coming back, and that's what they know. Their children must go to school and they must come back. They don't know what is done there. And they don't have even a reason to demand for better performance, because what is their input? Nothing. They are not paying anything to these schools, isn't it so? So there is no reason why even teachers should respect these parents. They know their children will come to school and they go back home. And the children themselves, they are not motivated to learn because they are not inspired. They don't have these people in the communities that are inspiring them to learn. They you grow, you go to the garden, then you grow. When you grow, you get married, and that's all. If you are to invest, it's small shops in the community that sell things like soap, sugar, some matchboxes, and that is it. They are not inspired to read hard and be different people, for there are no people in the community to inspire them. The parents themselves are off. Parents themselves have their issues. These children are not parented because these parents even don't have any method of parenting. Themselves, they were not parented. These are parents who got married at an early age. Find their child, a girl of 14 years is married. How do you expect this parent to parent? It is a child parenting another child. It's also a big problem in the communities. And I don't see it getting better tomorrow unless the community itself comes up. Like today here, people going to volunteer in their places of where they came from, maybe. Because some groups have come up to support their communities. For instance, there's a group where I belong called, is it Love Uganda? You just contribute 10,000 every month. And it's done to just to support the community. Unless we get such people who can come up, they are well wishers to help their villages improve. Otherwise, it's quite hard. I don't see hope of seeing this improving soon. I thank you.
Thank you so much. It's very sad that in 2022 we really can sit and say we don't see the gap of education inequality really, getting improved. It's a sad reality. And I want us to move to Isaac Wamala. I know you are passionate, a member of Teach for Uganda, an organization that is working hard to contribute to the narrowing of this gap, and would like to hear from you at what point, as a young man, at what point did you decide, let me join? What was your inspiration to join Teach for Uganda?
Thank you, Sandra. And sitting amidst director and CEO, it is really an honor, and it's a pleasure to me. And I decided to utilize any chance I get. if I'm given a chance to talk about education, I think I can talk the whole day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, I want us to hear the thoughts of your mentor, like you mentioned earlier, and it's really to understand James, Mr. James Arenithwe. You are the founder at Teach for Uganda. I want to believe you got a chance to go to school. You got a chance to actually finish university. What inspired you to start Teach for Uganda?
Yeah, thank you, Sandra, and the wonderful team that is here, educationists. I'm grateful to see fellow educationists because education belongs to all of us. I want to start us from a very high level to understand this problem, because we've talked of many problems, but education is the backbone of any nation's development. When you look at South Korea, for example, and I've had an opportunity because of education to travel the world. In 1960s, South Korea was the same poverty level with the Ghanaians and the Ugandans then, 1960s. But they decided to focus on education and using technology and training teachers to ensure that the teacher in South Korea is as qualified as a doctor. Think about that. The teacher in South Korea, it's actually harder to become a teacher in South Korea than to become a lawyer. So meaning that they invested so much in ensuring, there's a book that I would recommend that says the best kids in the world, and they talk about kids in South Korea and children in Finland. So the education of those countries was supported by not only the government with the policies and ensuring that teachers are trained, but also they trained leaders to ensure that they manage the schools. They also inspired parents to be part of the solution. So the idea of Teach for Uganda came personally from my own struggle, because as a young man, people just see you, they think, maybe your life was well. By the age of 4, I had lost my 2 siblings to measles in rural Kashari, in now Kashari County, which was then Barara. By 6, my mother died of cancer. By 10, my father passed away with HIV/AIDS. I am a survivor of 7 in my family, raised by a grandmother who could not read or write. I was sent to Katebe Primary School, which we all went barefooted. But there was one person who made a difference for me. That was my teacher, Teacher Amos. I was a young man who was very inquisitive. I wanted to learn science. I had asked so many questions. English was very hard for me. But by the time I finished P7, I was the best in that county. We didn't even have a center to sit here for exams at PLE. There were 4 schools, I remember them. Katebe, my school, Rishamero, Runengo, and Nyampiche, all sat in the same center. But why did I make it out? It's because the foundations of university, you actually have, out of those, you have actually 1. This is actually more particularly dangerous in rural communities, right? And that's why Teach for Uganda came about. We didn't even talk about the statistics of reading and writing. About 60% of those students do not even read a P2 book. About 50% of those cannot even solve a P2 mathematics. They are in P7, but they cannot solve a P2 mathematics. So we realized that then, it's not only us entire nation is in trouble, right? So we decided that we as Ugandans, like they had a step and have a very some process, and there was a quote by Jeff Kennedy which said, do not ask what your government can do for you. Ask what you can do as a citizen. So we came together with Charlotte, benchmarked from India. I had spent time in India. I saw Teach for India. And Indians, when they come here, you see them. Have you met any failed Indian in Uganda? No. Their education, no matter whether you're poor or not, allows them the opportunity to thrive. Charlotte spent time in the UK. There was Teach First UK. So we came back and said, we must start Teach for Uganda. When we approached the people at Makerere University, they said, this is impossible in Uganda. How are we going to take a Makerere graduate to rural MAYUGE, for example, to rural Ruweru? It will not happen. Of course, as you start any innovation, there will always be naysayers. Finally, we started in 2017. The first class went to Ruweru in 4 sub-counties. By the time they finished their second year, the Minister of State, Honorable Seninda at the time, she came, saw the schools, saw the community, saw the numbers, and she was so amazed. And she asked us, you young people, what you're doing is amazing. I want you to come and join me and Honorable Kadaga, and we want to take you to Busoga. Because the Busoga education was failing at the time. They had created the Bay, Busoga Education Initiative. Honorable Kadaga, Honorable Senina, and others from MAYUGE, from Busoga. So we launched in MAYUGE with the second cohort of Isaac and the team. As we speak, the results are in this video. So not to take too long, the results are in this video. As we speak now, we are at 5th cohort of 130. We are in 4 districts of the country. We are impacting over 22,000 young people. We have graduates who have left our program at Georgetown University studying policy. We have some 2 Chevening scholars. We have leaders like Isaac, who is here now working as an education officer. So we believe that this is a challenge of leadership that will take all of us to be involved if we want to inch our country forward.
Thank you so much, James. Now, I want to come back to you, Betty. You've listened to what James is saying. And do you think as a country, this is an innovation that we can embrace in different districts of the country?
Indeed, it is an innovation we can embrace, though it has a lot to do. I feel if we are to achieve anything with this education in rural areas, we have to target the parents in the first place. Before we think of the government, we have to start with the parents. Because the parents have, I think, given up, or they are in their own world. I can't explain. I've ever gone to Kabula Maido. The time I came back, I said, you mean out there, this is the life people live? From morning to evening, the men are drinking. You see these poor women with the babies on their back, all in a very bad state. I tried to find out why men were behaving in such a manner. They told me, since they removed the graduated tax and the school fees, mainly their work is only to drink because they don't have any responsibility to fulfill. The rest is left to the mothers. So if people still have that attitude, even if you call the whole government or other people to come and enforce, I feel it is just a nightmare.
So when you say we should start with the parents, how exactly should we do that?
We
do
need
we
to
move door
mobilize.
to door?
No. These children are going to schools, and we can target the parents through these schools where children are going. Or we can target these parents through village meetings. And we are able to speak to them. Without speaking to these parents, may feel whatever anyone is planning to do is just a nightmare. I don't see us ourselves achieving any or making any mileage. I don't see it. I feel the most important thing is first to target the parents, both in rural areas, even in our city schools. We bring them on board. They come to appreciate that they have a role to play in their children's education. First of all, these children you are teaching in the school, some already are tormented. They are traumatized. They are not in position to learn. They are brought up by young mothers who were not parented. Then they are also not parented. So it's just a total mess. I feel we need to go back on the ground. We start with the parents, we train them, we tell them what they are required to do. If we bring them on board, I feel we shall be able to achieve. We can do this through also places of worship. Me, I feel places of worship has not have someone is going to a church like Watoto, where there is mentorship. A younger father, a younger mother has a mentor to mentor him into a father, to mentor her into a mother. Obviously, this family is going to bring up responsible children. Then go to the villages. Even their precious places of worship, they don't add value onto them. They've not done their work, whereas I feel it's their responsibility, partly. Then we have our followers, village meetings. We can be able to talk to these people and maybe change their attitude, remind them of their responsibility, which we are not doing. Move out of Uganda here. Go to Rwanda, the next country to us. They have something known as the ways of parenting these children. But the parents we have in the rural areas, majority, don't have the ways of parenting these children. So they were not parented themselves. I don't think you can give what you don't have. Then they deepen the life, the kind of life these parents are living. A lot of poverty around. Every time you find the family, they are on the walls. There's nothing like love between mommy and daddy. Mommy smiling for daddy, daddy smiling for mommy. It's nowhere. It's nowhere. It's all about fights. Fights, and that's the life they are living. These children themselves have no value attached. Instead, they are looked at as like labor providers. They are the people to provide the labor to the family. There is no value attached. These children don't have any esteem. They don't believe in themselves. So they have not been loved, they have not been told how worthy they are. So it's really a big challenge. A lot is desired.
So we need to start with the parents because they are the first leaders in a child's life. All right. You truly do. I do want to move now to James. I believe you have something to add on that.
Live around the womb, which is also important for nurturing and nutrition for the mother to have that nutrition. And I hope as for parenting itself, even for mothers who are in these rural communities, that would give how why do we bring graduates? Most people have asked us, why do you bring these graduates here? Why don't you teach teachers? But we also honor and believe that our teachers are really their part. But unless you bring a role model, someone who sees a problem from a different angle, someone like Sandra who has gone to school, graduated, and now can say, I am fending for my family. These girls will not be admiring you. So they want someone who is a role model, right? So they want someone who is an engineer. We have kids in our class now who want to do mathematics or be an engineer because my teacher Chobe Bernard is an engineer. And therefore I want to be an engineer today. These children did not have that dream before. So we are saying that the education that we are trying to nurture, the leadership by nurturing these leaders, the engineers, the lawyers. You saw in the video, Nancy Ongom is a law graduate from Makerere University. Nancy Ongom will mentor more lawyers, more young women in those villages will believe themselves to be lawyers. Right now, she's in Kenya with on a human rights fellowship to go and learn from the Kenyans. She will come back and bring that story back to her classroom. Guess what? These girls in this classroom will say, I want to be like Nancy Ongom one day, a lawyer who travels the world and tells the story and works on human rights issues. But for the first time, maybe these children may not have had that opportunity. So that's what we are trying to do at Teach for Uganda. And what we're saying, we invite all of you to come, visit, and support us. You can actually say, I just want every year to give 10 books to Teach for Uganda kids or in the communities you work. That's also a contribution. And that's what she was sharing. Thank you.
You'll hand over the mic.
As he's saying that these children are being inspired by these graduates that are going to the communities. Reality is that the children in the villages also have lacked exposure completely and also. For instance, I said I'm an educationist, and last week, one of the kindergarten children, we are learning about the important places in the community. And you have to visit them physically. They get to know this is a bank, this is a church, this is a mosque, this is a police station. And at the end of it all, a number of them were telling us, if I grow up, I will be a banker. If I want to work in a smart place. So a child has been inspired at an early age, as early as 5 years. Now this child in the rural area is not inspired at all.
In fact, you do remind me, growing up, we were usually very confused on what we wanted to be because we did not have clear role models. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yes, they don't have an exposure. But takes me back to the parent. You see city parents, when he's going to the bank, will move with his son. Say, let's go to the bank. The boy is able to see. We'll go to the hospital, we'll move with his daughter. And daughter will see a doctor and will admire, which our parents in the village will not think about at all. So these children lack exposure. They don't have any exposure at all. That's something also we need to work on. If you are to support them, even if you carried the bus and took it to the village, you carried like 50 of them and you brought them to Kampala here. Move to different places. Let them see people working in the bank. Let them go to the hospital and see these doctors. They will get inspired and they work hard to be the same kind of people. Let them come and see these engineers putting off wonderful buildings in Kampala here. They will be inspired. I feel one of the things that our children in the villages are not coming up, they're also lacking that exposure, which is very, very important, and which is something very easy to achieve. Sandra, you can raise one morning here, go to your village, just park one bus and bring them around. They'll go back changing people. I thank you.
Thank you so much for all your submissions. A very interesting conversation here. And I want to once again say that growing up, we were very confused on what we wanted to be. Personally, for those who are watching, I wanted to be so many things. At one point, I wanted to be a teacher. At another point, I wanted to be a lawyer. And how I ended up in journalism, it's a whole other story. But it all goes back to the fact that we are not giving our children enough exposure, like you mentioned. They are not getting enough role models that are helping them, think about what they would really, really, really want to do. But anyways, for you who's watching us today, probably you can get to our comment section. Hopefully we can get those comments at the end of this conversation. We'd like to know, how do we, narrow, how do we get to that place where this gap is very small? Can we get to 2025 and actually speak about education inequality and say, I want to bring her back and I want her to say, now things are better. That is the main goal. So now, do allow me to move back to you, Isaac. We've spoken about different solutions to the current challenges that pose, this great, would say, divide. The rural communities, the rural children, and the urban children. But again, we know that in both sides, there are equally some problems. How do we solve this?
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. Partly, I will answer you by saying that by referring you to what I had said earlier on, that yes, regardless you are in journalism, and it's not that you're supposed to come out and go in class and teach, but there is an element of education space that you can touch, and children are inspired, children are energized, and they are able to yes, pick the morale and continue with education. So all of us, let's play a part in the education space, regardless of our professions, regardless of what we are doing, and regardless of our backgrounds. Then I will also say, yes, the youth out there, you see right now, the youth, we still have that energy. We still have, we've been exposed, like we have the gadgets that are exposing us to a lot of knowledge and content. So can we like channel that content that we are learning from online or whatsoever platform to support the children? Because Sandra, I have to tell you that when I was in Teach for Uganda, I was supporting, I think it was ranked second last in the 2017 PLE. Imagine a school being at the bottom in the whole country, and reaching there, you find that a lot had to be done. And of course, I can't say that I solved everything, but I left at least something solved. There were a lot of challenges. There were no children could not put on uniforms. They were not coming to school, just as Miss Betty said, and the problem was arising from home. When we tried to go home into their homes, that's when we realized, and we are like, yes, I think we can start it from here. And when we engaged the parents into their children's learning, trust me, results started manifesting. By the end of first term, where I had 26 learners in primary 4, I ended up with 48 by just in the first term. So we the youth, we have a very big role to play in this space, both in the rural areas where like people fear to go, and also in towns. When people in villages there, they say, I would like to go in town, I would like to study in town, but just as you mentioned, they also have their own challenges they're struggling with. Miss Betty said that most of the government schools, and this, trust me, people who are watching us, does not only require the government, because we always cry out, let the government help us, let the government help us, but like it is our only load that we have to carry, and we take it somewhere. At least if like you can't take it to the destination, make sure that at least you've moved it, even if it is an inch, it is going to do a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isaac. I want to stay with you, please. You know what they say, that wherever there is a challenge, there is an opportunity. Now, in these communities, like in your community, for example, what are the available opportunities that you believe young people or even the parents themselves can exploit to change this narrative that you see, we don't have equal education everywhere?
Okay, thank you. One of the challenges that I will still mention is we had a challenge of COVID pandemic, and whereby all schools were shut down. There was no learning, and of course, to people who think, that's when they innovated the tele-learning. Actually, we were teaching the children from phones. You could call a child, you could call a parent on a parent's phone, and you're like, I would like to speak to Isaac. And when they give Isaac the phone, you start like at least teaching one or two things through the phone. The other thing that is down there in the other opportunity that is really down there that people can really dive into, one of them is these parents or these community members that who are down there, they are ready to change. That is one thing that at least we can capitalize on and inform the communities. Then the other thing that if you look at the challenges that are really pressing the education in the rural areas is poverty, whereby learners can't even have basics at home, as in basics. And here I'm talking about food. I'm talking about clothing, I'm talking about accommodation, but again, they have land. They have vast pieces of lands there. So me, when I was at school in Kalagala, we got our piece of land, and I'm like, yes, we can grow crops here. We can grow some vegetables here. And instead of learners going on an empty stomach, let's grow some so that we can feed the children. And we eliminate that challenge that children are not coming to school because of hunger. Actually, it is now going to attract them, because remember, at home they are not eating. So it is going to be a trap. They are going to come simply because they want to eat.
Because on Tuesday there's food.
There is food. And on that particular date or in that particular school, you're going to register large numbers. Then the other opportunity that I can really mention is the fact that these learners that we have in those schools, just as we mentioned here, they are, how can I describe this? You find that they have different skills. Let me say that they just need to be tapped on. Like, it is just polishing, and you'll see a learner doing wonders. Let me as well give you another example in my school, which I served. Reaching in school, they don't have uniforms. You can't differentiate between a learner and someone who is just passing. Someone has put on the same clothing from Monday to Friday, and it is the same clothing he or she is using in garden. So I'm like, yes, we can do something. And I cannot, me as Isaac, I cannot do it, but if I'm with the learners, we can do it. So I skilled them in making these local crafts, the brooms, the ropes, the what, and every Wednesday afternoon, these learners could bring these materials, and we make those particular crafts. And at the end of the day, we sold them. And Sandra, when you go to Kalagala Primary School right now, you'll find that every learner is dressed in a school uniform. And these uniforms were not bought when I was there. Not all that were bought when I was there. But after initiating something, people picked it, and they utilized it. Even right now, actually, the fellow who is currently there calls me and he tells me, Isaac, your initiative is working. And I'm like, yes, I did something. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Now, Mr. Arinitwe, when we talk about the challenges that are hindering people from accessing education, someone can come and say, there is an available opportunity. What are those opportunities that you see in the existing challenges in the education sector?
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. I'm glad that we have people like Solutions now who can shed a light on this, because we've been at this challenge for the last 6 years, and you now getting attention of it, and Miss Betty and everyone. It's great for us, and it's great for the education of Uganda, because we should all be involved. So the opportunities are enormous. One, I don't subscribe to the fact that rural learners cannot actually succeed. I am one of them, right? My wife is one of them, who is a physician now. She's a doctor taking care of millions of people. So I believe that rural learners have the same potential just as kids who are going to Kampala parents. The only difference is the opportunity, right? So we as Ugandan, as he said, youth, or all of us as professionals, we have a role to find a way of mentoring. You can make a choice and say, I may not go to MAYUGE, but I'm gonna mentor the girl who is a fellow who is helping those girls. I'm gonna give her the tools, the skills, meet her in Kampala, support her idea. If she wants, for example, our classes, the other day I was at Nkono Primary School, 300 children in one classroom of P1. I have a picture where you could not even have a place to step. They removed the small desks that were there, now kids are sitting on the floor. She's struggling. She was doing a marathon here in Kampala, trying to raise money so that she can have Manila papers and beautify her classroom. So you can mentor Catherine Cantona and say, I'm going to support you, connect you to other people to help you improve your classroom, right? And the children there will be willing to learn. There's another school that I visited where they are trying to mentor these young people to come to the spelling bee, which is going to happen here in Kampala. Miss Betty was talking about the inspiration that the children get when they get to Kampala. Before COVID, we brought about 4 kids who stayed in Kampala, and all of those young people graduated in COVID P7, and they are able, some at Entebbe Secondary School, some are now at Namugongo. they all got scholarships. Because the inspiration they got, some of them went and told stories. I was able to sleep in a hotel for the first time. Like the whole village was like, wow, you know. So we have a role to play. So one, the potential of these young people is huge. And remember, they are the majority. So if we tap into them, our nation will change. Two, I don't like this idea of saying that teachers are not willing. The teachers also are confronting so many challenges, right? Their own children are struggling. Their own families are struggling. And remember, they're also coming from the products of the community. So our role as leaders is why we take these graduates, is that they become the glue that holds it together, that work with the teachers, work with the parents, work with the PTCs, work with the PTAs, work with the churches and the mosques to tell the same story that, hey, let children come back to school. We are the group now, Carol Sarah is now at Clark Junior. She was hired because she was amazing. In Mwanji, a school that was at the border of Nakasongola and Wero. I want to tell that story. When they got there were literally 200 children in an entire school. On Mother's Day, they did placards. They went around and says, Mother's Day, every child must return to school. Young girls must return to school. By the time Carol Sarah and Charles Oboyo left, the school was at 638 children. Where were all those children? They were there, right? And now, by the time they left, one of our funders was so excited about the role. He said, I want to, because the teachers were not coming. They were staying so far away, 50 miles from the school. And then now that funder was able to build four teacher quarters. That school now has teacher quarters, not by government, by us who chose to say we can do something. Now those teachers are staying at school. So I love solutions now because they are now showing that they are Ugandans who can actually think of themselves as solution drivers and work together to embrace the solutions. So for me, I want to call, we have a partner with DHL, it's one of the, and Ernst & Young. I want to call corporate companies, MTN and others, to join us and say that if we want a leader who will work as a technologist, who will work as a financial person, then they must come out of these education systems. The opportunities are there. The challenges are there, but what lacks is, are we really putting our money where our hands are, for the lack of the better word? Yeah.
Thank you so much, James. We all have a role to play indeed. Now, Miss Betty Tushabi, just to pick your thoughts, you mentioned quite a number of challenges that we are facing that are causing this inequality. But again, like they've said, there's always an opportunity in every single challenge. What are your thoughts on that? And how do we identify those and exploit them to the positive?
Exactly. It's obvious that in every situation, there is an opportunity. And as we manage these children's education, we must know that it is education that is the equalizer, and we try to give everyone the best opportunity we can. One of the biggest opportunity we have in the rural places, these parents are easily mobilized. If you have a will to mobilize these parents, we can easily mobilize them, and we really take what we want them to pick, and they will be able to implement. One, they must take note that it takes a whole village to raise a child. Everyone must be involved for these children to be able to make it. Both the community members, the mother, the father, though, which is not the case today. So I can say one of the opportunities is you can easily mobilize these parents because you know where they stay. They are in the same community, they know one another, which is not the case with Kampala. At the same time, these children need just a simple touch. You just do something small, they just need to be given an opportunity, I can say. That's all they need. Because if you compare rural area children compared to Kampala children, most of our children are pampered, they need a lot to be supported, whereas the other children just need to be given an opportunity. That's all they need. Simple touch and they move on. If you look at some of the important people we have in the community or in the nation or outside this nation, you are going to find that not are those ones who are doing very, very well. Like people have been the presidents of this nation, presidents of other nations. You look at a former president of America, Barack Obama. Look at the president of Kenya currently. Those are, and so many other examples. So it encourages you that if these children are given any simple opportunity, they will be able to make it in life. That's all they need. And lastly also, the government. I think the government is looking up to these children, see them being better children. I feel also we can tap into the government and remind them of their responsibilities to set up the better facilities in these communities. Yes, there's that advantage that you can talk to the government and that is something is done. I feel all those are good opportunities to tap into.
All right, let us conclude this conversation by speaking directly to the role of technology, and we want to understand the place of technology in improving learning. I want to go back to you, Isaac. How do we ensure that we take advantage of technology? You know, we are seeing phones, like you mentioned much earlier, the internet, yeah, the rates are quite high, but how do we ensure that even the rural schools have access to the use of technology?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sandra. This is now something that triggers my mind, and I'm like, yes, if at all you talk about technology, incorporating technology and education, I think now we're about to hit the bull's eye. First and foremost, I have to say that technology, one of the things that it is going to avail us with is that these learners are going to keep learning even in the absence of a teacher. If at all we have that technology properly monitored, properly managed, they're going to be in position to learn even without a teacher, even without a word. Just it is a matter of inputting there the content that you want this child to access, and the child is able to access that content. Actually, Mr. Kasaga here is also working upon, I think he's partnering with some people who are really ensuring that, yes, technology should be in schools. And I have to mention a school in MAYUGE East and a primary school, Kaluva, and some other schools. These people have really gone to another level, as in they've accessed tabs. These tabs, they input the content that they want these learners to access, and they are learning. So the question was, how can we tap into it? As I think all of us, these lights that we have here, they have no access to these screens that we are seeing here, and they have no power. So let's start by expanding this rural electrification program to all places in the world, to all places in Uganda. If at all we have power everywhere, I think even people who are willing to donate these tablets, they will have their burden relieved. If it's like someone is going to avail like 10 tabs and you're telling him, yes, we also have power here, you find that he will even increase the number of tablets that is going to avail. Then the other thing is teaching the teachers this technology. Many times we blame the teachers for not maybe living up to the expectations, but again, what is their mentorship? How is it when they're in institutions there? Are they having full access to technological gadgets? Because if at all we are having them in schools, they are going to break down. Why? Because the teachers can't operate them. So even the teachers themselves, they need to be empowered in the use of these technological gadgets, so that by the time we are saying that, yes, a gadget and a tablet is here, the teacher is able to operate it and is able to even teach a child on how to use it. You see, when you go down there, that's when you realize that, yes, reality has to set in. When you hear in Kampala, a child of primary 2, a child of 5 years, 3 years is able to operate a phone, is able to do what, but get in the village there, you'll even find that a mother or even a father cannot utilize a smartphone. Even the Mapesa phone that he or she has, people like they are green about that. So people, parents, teachers, they need to also be empowered in the use of this technology. Thank you,
Isaac. Now over to you, Mr. Adenith. We would like to hear from you briefly what you think is the place of technology in improving learning.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. First of all, the Ministry of Education and Sports has a policy that they want a digitally competent teacher by 2030. I am one who believes in what Martin Luther King says, the fierce urgency of now. It's now 2022. When are we going to get a digitally competent teacher by 2030? So what we did at Teach for Uganda, and with all humility, COVID hit, kids in rural communities were left out. In my work, I had traveled, spent some work in San Francisco, at Facebook, and some people. So friends asked, James, how are rural Ugandan kids learning? And I said, we are stuck. We need help. So we mobilized a few friends of ours from San Francisco and others in the digital technology area, and they wanted help. Guess what happened? We hit a snag. There's no power. You can ask him in Karagala or Isenda or whatever community you mentioned, unless you have one, it's like one place with electricity. So imagine since COVID, we have powered 8 schools with digital technology, including solar. You can come and see them. I can name them: Isenda, Kalagala, Karuba, Busuikila, Chigandalo. Digital technology. Today, children are able to rotate in these classrooms for the first time in UPE schools. It's not government. It's by us, Ugandans, who are mobilizing our friends, our resources to ensure this happens. The same funder is willing to go up to 10 sites, and then we are studying the impact of that and sharing it. And hopefully soon, we are seeing more people who are interested in bringing digital technology to our rural communities and rural learners. I want to appeal to our digital entities. We have MTN, we have Airtel. I've had several conversations with Airtel. Maybe those communities are far removed, but can we maybe pilot it here in the slums, in our rural settings in Kampala, and then if it works, we are willing to take it. But for us, we believe it works because we have graduates who can actually train the other teachers. Recently, let me share one last one. We don't just stop at technology. We believe that a young woman like you in rural community needs financial education, because if you're gonna, we believe that when a woman is educated, when a woman is empowered with the resources, they're able to make their families thrive. My grandmother helped me thrive. If it wasn't for her, probably I wouldn't be here. So we have partnered with a global agency, financial firm called Credit Suisse, and we are bringing, for the first time, Sandra, financial literacy for kids, children of UPE schools 6 to 14 years old. So we are training financial education. So what I'm saying is we have wonderful, amazing banks here. Why can't we request them? Let them partner with us. We take financial education to these communities, empower the girl child, let them have financial skills, technology skills, train the teachers to deliver this. And I guarantee you by 2030, by 2040, Uganda will be a different place.
Thank you so much, James. I want to conclude with you, Miss Betty Tushabe. What do you think is the role of technology in improving learning?
Technology is very, very important. It plays a big role in the improvement of this learning, for it makes it interesting. And Kampala schools are achieving it. As I mentioned earlier, I think I manage a school where you have over 4 projectors, and there is e-learning in the school. And when you are going out for e-learning, obviously children are very, very interested in the lessons. Yes, we have computer lessons. It's on a timetable at least every week. But it takes us to first see that the teachers themselves are computer literate themselves. As has been mentioned before, you are going to see that you have limitations like power. Though we can also tap into solar and other sources of power, so that we get improvement in this area. It's very, very important. But before we run into the technology itself, which you may not achieve tomorrow, can we get the basics in the first place? Can these children be able to achieve in literacy and numeracy before even we think of technology, the e-learning, the new technology, or taking on e-learning? Can we focus on the basics? Like I'm a teaching infant, and I'm seeing that these children, I target the numeracy and the literacy. They can understand the concepts in the numeracy, and they can be able to read and write. I feel that's the first achievement we should be targeting currently. Then the issue of technology, maybe as we touch different communities, as he mentioned earlier, to support these communities. Otherwise, e-learning is very, very interesting.
Very interesting. I think if I was to go back to my lower education, I would have preferred to do e-learning than any other. because it's very practical in a way. You're touching this and the other, and children need to be activated. They need something to keep their concentration on. So thank you so much to our speakers that have been able to help us understand what education inequality is, what it actually means for our country, for our parents, for us, the younger generation that can actually create change. So I want to believe that for every single person that has gotten a chance to, one, watch that story, to listen to amazing speakers, to a person that has come up with an initiative, Teach for Uganda, to a passionate educationist, to an alumni, you've gotten a chance to pick 2 or 3 or one thing that you can implement in your day-to-day life to ensure that there is great change in the way education is given to every single Ugandan in our country. I believe there's something you'd like to say, and I want to give you that opportunity.
One opportunity I want us to tap into. The beautiful thing with the issue of e-learning, a number of teachers currently have smartphones. Even parents, a number of them have acquired smartphones. And if you can go into your phone and use it rightly, I'm very sure your learners will be able to benefit. You can go to the internet using your phone. Then you come up with the different learning areas or different methodologies. So I would encourage all the teachers out there in rural places to see that they tap into that opportunity. Let them learn these phones. Many of them have them, but they cannot use them. But there are many apps that can really do amazing work. I thank you.
Thank you so much, wonderful speakers once again. Thank you so much, Media Challenge Initiative. Thank you so much, Solutions Now Africa. It's been such an honor being here to speak about a topic that I'm passionate about. Being a young, I want to believe I'm still a young girl who has encountered lots of young girls who are getting out of school because of one, menstrual pads, menstruation pads, just a single issue like that will stop someone from going to school. We are still seeing families, parents choosing to send their boys to school and leaving the girls behind. We are still seeing situations where parents are choosing to keep their children at home because they cannot, afford to feed them. So how do we work together as a community in one or the other to ensure that this is addressed? We can do it if we work together. So thank you so much for having been part of this conversation. I'm scared I didn't get the feedback from the online audience, but of course, this is a conversation we can carry on our social media platforms. Send in your comments. Create the change you want in the communities that you live. Thank you once again for joining us. I've been your host, Sandra Twinobudio.
Time to come and have this conversation. It is indeed the right time. A wise man, Mugambe Richard, once told me that education at any level is prudent for the success of a nation and the globe. And therefore, this story, Hope for MAYUGE, is exactly what we needed to have this discussion about. Now, to everyone that has been part in form of the virtual audience, we appreciate you very much. Thank you. And you can be part of this conversation. The conversation can keep on going on any of our social media platforms. That is Solutions Now Africa on all social media platforms, and solutionsnow.africa for our website. Keep the conversation going. We really apologize for some of the technical glitches that we've been facing today, but we can bet you that more of these positive impact stories, more of these positive narrative change stories will be coming through with Solutions Now Africa. For example, next month, the month of November, we'll be looking at a story on cryptocurrency. Is it a devil or is it just a misunderstood angel? I'm going to let you check the trailer out. We are watching Israel. Israel, you're the one on live stream right now. Yeah?
There is no one who can fail or even who has failed in cryptocurrency. There is no one who can fail or even who has failed in cryptocurrency.
The experience was bad, I would say. Like, it was bad because right now I'm working in losses.
Bitcoin was designed to launder money. Let me be honest.
Through friends whom I used to talk to, one of them came to me and tipped me about trading. I traded one day and I got $260.
Cryptocurrency is a class of digital currency or virtual currency.
When you lose money in a cryptocurrency scam, you cannot recover it.
People should make more research about something real and something not real.